Get out the way. Who got a watch? Who got the time? I'm racing the clock. Even in my feelings, grind don't stop. Got big.
Hi, Susan. Welcome to Mature Allure.
Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy you're here because I think that as we start moving into the age over 40 plus, the topic of awareness is so important. So before we get into it, I'm going to have you introduce yourself and tell us more about you.
Well, I'm Susan Nefzger, and I'm a writer and I'm a coach, and I've been in PR for 30 years. So along the way, I was on a self-awareness journey for probably about 30 years, because it started when I read Brian Weiss, MD's book about reincarnation called Many Lives, Many Masters. And all of a sudden, a light bulb went on. And I just felt like, okay, I want to know what all that is. So I just started traveling. I worked on on the Georgia Lottery startup team. So I was really busy for a couple of years. And after that, I just traveled all over the world to figure out what it was that I was looking for. And which is the feeling of having your life, you've done everything, like at this point in our lives, and especially women, they've had their kids, they've been married, they've had a successful career, they've been doing the things that they literally like doing. I mean, for the most part.
Yeah.
And so, but if you still feel like something's missing and there's something else you should be doing, that means that you're seeking your purpose, and you know that you have one, and you know all the things that make you passionate and happy, and that sparks you, and so you know all that, and so following that path to awareness, you just have to follow the path. So that's what I did, and then that took me to Glastonbury in 2015 to a conscious writing retreat. And I knew I always wanted to write a book. I'm journalism minor, English major. I've always been in PR writing. And so I went without expectations. And it was a really specific process that this woman, Julia McCutcheon, does. She really does it so people can write what they're meant to write. And I started writing the book the first day in the gardens of Glastonbury Abbey, the ruins.
Wow.
And I knew when it was happening as I was observing, and I was, on a spiritual path at that point. Obviously I had been. So I knew exactly what was happening, but I was still understanding that in this, like 72 hours that I was writing the book, I mind mapped the outline, the title, and I just started writing it. I knew that was changing my life. And at the time I was married and my son was graduating from high school. And I knew all that was going to be affected. And so I went home and I was finishing writing the book, and I eventually got divorced and moved back to Atlanta. And after the time that I wrote the book, published it, went back the next year and wrote to another retreat with her and wrote the workbook. I moved probably like 5 or 6 times. And so, I had to be very mindful, because that all of those things presented a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
I knew then that my purpose was to help people become self-aware through writing a practical guide to self-awareness. And the workbook is putting awareness into practice. And that whole composition was way easier than my third book, because I was literally just channeling all of that.
Yeah.
And
so,
yeah.
So I was going to ask, what's the title?
My new book is A Practical Guide to Living Fearlessly.
Yes, that one I want to talk about, but the other one, awareness. What is it? A practical guide to awareness?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
How, when you were at the retreat and you were, like you said, 48, 72 hours writing it, what were you like? How was that process of awareness coming about in you?
So, like I said, there was a process to access our creative consciousness.
Hmm.
So that process, it was involved very early morning guided meditation and qigong and breath work, and then um, after the guided meditation, writing, and then whatever was you were whatever you were guided to write. And so for me, it was the book. So I was writing the book. I would
Yeah.
go outside and I would write the book. So I would do the process with the group of people I was with. These people I'd never met in my life, who ended up being now my group of people that read everything I write before I publish it. We're all
Wow.
there's like six of us that are still really close. It was it was it was obviously life changing. So it presented how that all presented was that I felt like I was in another world, and I to even connect with my family or any reality was very difficult. So I was in this heightened state of creation, and that's how I felt. And of
Yeah.
course, where I was extremely beautiful, and obviously the reason for my inspiration, Glastonbury, which is historically very significant for many people, but it is for me specifically. And that's a whole other story. But
Yeah.
so while I was doing it, I mean, it was just total immersion. And I think that was the secret to getting to that place, because so many of us have so many, responsibilities with family and work and everything else. So for me, getting completely away from all that was
Mhm.
and then being in this specific space of focus on just that creative process. That was the thing in this form that just did it for me. I mean, clearly, it was meant to be. So that's how it presented for me.
Wow. So then let's talk about the practical guide to living fearlessly.
Mm-hmm.
What first, let's define living fearlessly before we
Right.
talk about how we can live fearlessly.
It's important to understand. So the summer before the pandemic, I got the inspiration for this for my latest book, and I did the outline and the table of contents and the title. And my mom became ill, and I was traveling back and forth to Florida, and then so I wasn't focusing on the book. Then we had the pandemic, and I said, okay, I'm writing this book because I have more time.
Yeah.
And it was a time of a lot of fear. Clearly, nobody knew what was going to happen. And I found at that point in time that the best thing I could do was help people focus on finding beauty every day. So I shared a lot of my photography, and I just stayed really positive in sharing that with my readers and my followers, because people were just finding any reason, to be afraid. So,
Yeah.
and I lived in Atlanta at the time, and it was a pretty chaotic time in Atlanta with all the rioting and everything that was happening. So I just felt like I had to hold space in that area with, anchoring love and not fear, and not get caught up in the outside energy and everything that was going on, even though it was difficult not to. But I felt like my position in the whole thing was to be an inspiration for people to know that, you know, nothing lasts and everything changes, and eventually everything will go back to now, as we know it, a new way of life, even. So
Yeah.
I started writing the book, and it wasn't as easy to do because there were a lot of distractions, and my mom was ill, and so for me to be not afraid of the usual things. Like I'm never afraid of the usual things anyway. I've just always been that way. So, and I've lived a life where, as I described with writing my books, a lot of things, I'm just always in a position of being kind of the leader or the paradigm breaker and showing people that they can do what they need to do and be happy doing it. So for me, that living fearlessly is knowing that you can do anything that you need to do. You do have the support. You do have everything you need. It's all within.
Mm.
And everyone always looks outside of themselves for the answers, but we have it. We have everything we need. So the whole awareness, mindfulness keys into being fearless, because being mindful and aware, if you can be the objective observer and understand when you become afraid of something, or if you get ahead of yourself by thinking about what do I have to do today, what do I have to do tomorrow, and getting ahead of yourself into the future, that's the thing that creates anxiety. And
Yeah.
so people don't understand is that there is a flow to life and there's a flow to our presence. And we have to understand that this isn't all there is. So you can call it whatever you want. You can call it being spiritual. You can call it God. You can call it the universe. You can call it creator. You can call it whatever you want, but there is a consciousness that we're all a part of. And that's the other thing.
Yeah.
We're all part of the same consciousness. So everything we do affects everybody else. So the whole point of being aware and mindful is all awareness. So when you get afraid of something, or you become afraid of something that you don't know. Let's say usually it's about things we don't know. So let's say you get nervous about public speaking. Right. So the easiest thing to do is to say to yourself, okay, why? Why am I afraid of public speaking? Why do I become nervous? Well, it's usually linked to something regarding your being self-conscious about how people perceive you. So then it leads you down the road of understanding what triggers you have. So these could be from trauma from childhood. They could be from trauma defaults from any kind of thing that happened to you that really bothered you when it happened. So being fearless is understanding that there's either love or there's either fear. So love really is inclusion, acceptance, understanding that we're all connected. Fear is usually shame, guilt, wanting to be right about something because you want to have control. It has a lot to do with control. I mean, it presents in a lot of different ways. Being afraid of people who aren't like us because we don't understand who they are or where they come from or what they're about. So fear really is a very basic thing. And I think people elevate fear because people feel anxious if they're afraid, and they have all these things happen that make them feel differently. But if we view fear the same as we view love, it's 50-50. It's either one or the other. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. I never thought of it like that.
Yeah. Well, that's all there is. It's either love or fear. There's no in between. Right?
Wow. And then when you said to ask why you're fearful, because I sometimes I know if I get fear, like you said, of public speaking, I don't ask myself that. It's just you're
Right?
just overthinking it, and you're
That's exactly it. And so that's the whole point of awareness and being in the flow. Because people are always in their minds, in their ego mind. Your ego mind is the thing that generates the fear because it wants to control your subconscious mind. So there's all these different varieties of consciousness that we don't even know about. So your subconscious mind, you can train it to access all there is available to you in the collective consciousness. And I know that sounds esoteric, but that's how I got to be where I am right now. And
Yeah.
it's how I found my path. How did that happen? Think about it, right? I'm
Yeah.
in my 50s. I go to England to a writing retreat and my whole life changes. So I'm the example for everyone that you can find your purpose. You can live a joy-filled, more fulfilling life. And you don't have to do anything special. I mean, you don't have to do what I do or what other people do. Just do what makes you happy. And that's what people just, it's too simple for people to accept that if you just do what makes you happy every day, that everything flows from there.
And that's a key point, especially like you said, at this point in our lives, in our 50s, things change. There's so many things going on around you that are changing. Spouses, marriages end, new marriages begin, kids move out of the house. Um, Somebody may pass away. All kinds of things,
Oh,
and you
yes.
get caught up.
The whole fear about it, our parents dying and leaving us. And so that's a generalization because I assume most people have a good relationship with their parents. And
Yeah,
for me, in the book, I say in my epilogue, for me, my mother passing away was the final fear. And I didn't, and I wondered why, and I knew because I do everything by intuition now. I stay present as much as I can, but I knew that there was a delay in finishing the book because I was going back and forth to Florida, helping care for my mom with the rest of my family, and that's a whole talk talk about anxiety.
yeah,
Uh, but I knew going into that situation, okay, because I was in a great place, but I knew going into that situation, I wasn't going to be in a great place. But I did
yeah,
it because I knew that I wanted to be with my mom. And I ended up being with her when she passed, when she transitioned. And I didn't put any expectation on that because I didn't know how it was all going to end up. I didn't even know if I preferred to be with her or not.
yeah,
We were very close, and I ended up being with her with my son and another sister. And so I talk about that whole transition and finding beauty in every situation, even in your grief. Um, and so that's the whole point of my book, A Practical Guide to Living Fearlessly, is there is beauty in every situation. There really is. You just have to find it. And so the whole perspective of flipping your perspective when you feel like whatever it is, left out, insecure, um, that you're not being included, that you're not as successful as you think you should be, comparison, all those things. Sometimes people feel that way. And when you feel that way, just flip it and say, yes, but look what I have this whole group of great friends who love me, all the people who love me. I have my health. If you have your health,
yep,
I have the ability to do what I do. I can walk every day. I have the ability to walk and move. Some people
yep,
don't. Whatever it is that you have, that's easy for you to say, but I can do all this and I'm grateful for that. So flipping it. And everybody I know gets so tired of me because I say, okay, flip it. Okay. So no, don't gripe in front of me because I will say, okay, let's flip it. Okay,
yep,
what about this? And so, and so that's really it is really the way life works because we're in charge. It's like a TV. Change the channel.
yeah.
Radio, change the channel. If you're driving
Wow.
on a road trip, take another road. You know, it will it changes your life completely. And it has changed my life completely. And so it's been like almost 10 years since I went to the retreat and wrote my first book. And I was
Wow.
thinking yesterday, oh my God, I can't believe it's been that long. And not everybody understands, the whole purpose behind all of this, but that's my job isn't to worry about whether they understand or not. It's just to share the message. And so I just keep sharing.
Exactly. Give the tools to to help them along the way. Because a lot of like what you said, what you were talking about, I don't, like I was saying before, you don't even think about it. You sometimes when you're in kind of your pity party or your woe is me, you're not thinking about flipping it. And I know I've caught myself sometimes thinking, like you said, okay, well, I need to be here, here, here. And then I'll say, well, at least I am here, so I do understand the concept of flipping it.
Yeah.
So, but it's good that you're putting it out there, because some people don't have experience with that, or they don't understand how to really get there to be able to do that.
That's the whole point of why this message is the message that apparently it's my purpose to help
Hmm.
people. But also I think it's very relevant to women over age, 40. I think it's a very relevant message because we just have this whole conditioning. And I'm not saying, younger women, I think, have had a totally different upbringing. And we
Yeah,
had a role model we had our role models, and we all know that we follow those role models. We all know this. It's called conditioning. It's what happens. It's
yep,
why people have family businesses. It's why you do what your mother or your father did. It's just conditioning, and it's all just how it is. But so the point is, younger women know they just do whatever they want. I mean, I have nieces that are in their 30s and 40s, and they've always been just,
yep,
no, I'm doing this. I don't care what anybody thinks,
yeah,
And so I think it's relevant for people over 40 to understand that being a mother, okay, it's a great thing. I love being a mother, but that's not your purpose,
yeah.
right? Because a lot of people associate being a mother with that being their purpose. That's not
Hmm.
your purpose. The other thing I learned during this whole process, and of course, this is all a journey every day for me. I understand new things every day. Things are become clear to me every day. So there's never a destination. That's the
Hmm.
thing people don't understand. And it even me, it took me a long time to finally have that aha moment. Oh, right, that's what it means. It's all about the journey. Because every day is different. Every day is a new day.
Mm.
Nothing's ever going to be the same. And every person on the planet has a unique gift. Every single person. No one's the same. And we're all here to share our gifts. So here's the thing. What if everybody knew what their purpose was and knew that they had gifts to share? Let's say that we were all aware and everybody did that. Don't you think it would be a completely different world?
A completely different society, world, everything. Completely different.
We'll get there. It's happening. It
Well,
doesn't.
hopefully, and with books like yours, and to make people, like you said, mindful of their what's within and what they can do. It brings me to your website, which your web address is what, seeing beyond the ordinary.
Yes.
I mean, I saw that, I was like, oh my goodness, that is a really great URL. Like,
Well,
talk to me about it.
okay. So that came to me also. A lot of things happened in that transformation of that 72 hours. I started writing poetry that rhymes. I never wrote poetry. Never wrote poetry in my life. That's why if you go on my site, you'll see it's full of poetry. I mean, now I just do daily posts and I don't write as much poetry, but it was like, what the heck? But it comes out in different ways in my photography, which is a hobby. That's just the thing that I really love. It's a real passion for me. But um, the whole point of seeing beyond the ordinary is it just came to me because I was finding the beauty in each day and through my photography and sharing that. And especially during the pandemic, and people were so appreciative, and I would just do a post every day, daily beauty, and I would share it because I take nature photography and landscape,
Mhm.
and that really helped people, and that was really the beginning. Even before I wrote the books, it was like leading me there, to just people would be so inspired by my photography, and that was the only reason I shared it. And that's really still the only reason I do, because what I figured out is, and whatever your gifts are, you figure it out if you follow, your intuition and the things that lead you down the path, the breadcrumbs, as I say. What that led me to do was to have all this photography that I now pair with my daily posts.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is always connected, and it led me to find the beauty in every day. Like, I think it was just one summer I couldn't travel, and I said, well, what can I do? Well, I'm going to start taking pictures of all these really beautiful things, and I'm going to appreciate that, like where I am locally when I was in Florida living. And so that's really how it all started. But Seeing Beyond the Ordinary is a very old religious, kind of esoteric, what's the word? Thinking and belief. And if you look it up, it's very old. It's all about spirituality. But I didn't know that. I just knew I want to call my website "Seeing Beyond the Ordinary."
Well, that's a really good website. I mean, especially since a lot of it ties into everything that you're doing, the awareness, the mindfulness. I mean, because it helps in that the purpose. When people come to seeingbeyondtheordinary.com, they already know what they're going to get,
I hope so. I hope it still inspires people. There's a lot on there. And I started that right after the retreat. It was really a blog to post my poetry and my pictures, because I was writing so much poetry. It was crazy. And then my photographs. And then with the book, I would take quotes and pair them with my photography. And so that's how I still do it.
Yeah.
It's pretty basic, but I think people are oversaturated with all that stuff. I mean, and it's changed a lot even in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So I just try to keep it simple, and inspire people, because the one thing I did learn during all this time is that in taking pictures, I just kept thinking, what is it about my pictures that people love so much? And my vibration, because I have a practice of mindfulness, and I'm in nature, and I ground myself in nature, and I meditate, and I have stillness every day. So I have this whole life of what I preach. I do practice what I preach. And so I feel like I see things differently. And so when I share that light and that vibration, other people get that. They receive that. So that's what I figured out, why people find meaning in my photography. Because I don't sell it or anything. It's not for that. You know what I mean? It's for me because I love it. But I also do it to share with people to, what if you're stuck? What if you're sick and you're in bed all the time or in the hospital, and you find my website and you see my pictures and it makes you feel better? That's the whole purpose of what I do.
Yeah. Well, I know that you are a veteran public relations professional. So let's pivot a little bit. Just to talk about the PR landscape today. And the reason why I'm bringing this up is because PR, in my opinion, has completely changed. And if you're somebody around our age, or 40, 45 plus, who's looking into starting a business, starting something new, you might have that old way of PR thinking. What it's completely different.
I was there. I lived it. Trust me.
Yeah. What's your assessment of public relations today?
So my assessment is pretty straightforward. It's all about your contacts. And the other thing is, which has always served me my whole career, is, and this is a good example. So Charleston, where I'm living now. Going back and forth to Florida from Atlanta, I would stop in Charleston on my way back. And I was, because I wanted to be near the water again. So I said, okay, how can I get to know professionals and people in my field and photography? And I do food blogging. I do all kinds of stuff. how can I get to know these people without living in Charleston and doing all the, crazy traveling that I'm doing? So I did it through Instagram, and this is how you can meet people. So what I always do when I want to get to know about a certain specialty or geographic area or topic, I find the people that know everything about it, and then I get to know those people. So you have to be, you have to be unafraid enough and, willing to contact people, cold call people. But you probably at some point have somebody who knows this person. And so I'm really good, if I can say, at building networks. And so that's how you do it in PR now. It's still all about networking. People still need to meet other people, and now that we're beyond the pandemic and that's happening again, that's how I got to know people here, through Instagram. I got to know photographers and food bloggers and influencers in a really specific niche that I wanted to get to know. And that's how, when I finally moved here, after visualizing myself riding a bike over the bridge to Sullivan's Island every day for 2 years, and then I ended up here. Okay, so visualizing is also the key with everything you're doing, with PR, with writing, with anything you're doing, even with anything new that you want to try, or even if you feel like you're stuck, you're a professional, you're a writing professional, and you feel stuck. Visualizing every day and creating the world that you want to be in, not where you are now. You have to create it with your visualization every day, 5 minutes. That's all it takes. So, but that's how I built my network here, is through, I chose Instagram at the time. Now it's also very different, and things change sometimes. So it could be anything. It could be a blog. It could be, it could be a local group of professionals, whatever it is, but it's all still, PR is still all networking. And that's one thing that's never changed. For me, it's never changed. And I have a pretty wide network. And so, and I always try to help other people. I always have, especially women, especially young women, get to where they want to go, or introduce them to other people, or connect people. I like connecting people who I know can help each other. So that's networking. And that's the one thing that's never changed. Now, everything else has pretty much changed, because really there is no more PR, because with placements, with earned media, that's really still all about who you know, but also specifically pitching to the right fit for your story and the publication or venue or whatever it is, online, magazine. It has to be a specific niche fit, and it has to fit. You can't just pitch people stuff that doesn't make sense to their readership. It doesn't work, and it really doesn't work now. I mean, and if you need a contact, there's ways to find the contacts for the people that you want to pitch, but it's totally different, as you say. I mean, for me, I'm still utilizing my network, but if there's somebody that I want to talk to, I just find a way to do it. And so that's how I've always been, but I've always been in PR. So I think a lot of PR people are like that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because I know even myself, if I want to, like, I contacted you, I saw your books, and like, I have, as a writer, I used to have to contact people all the time to try and get interviews so that hasn't changed for me. I still continue to do that. But some people aren't like that, and there might be a little bit of fear, like you said, living fearlessly. There might be a little fear in that, and that brings up, I was going to ask you 3 points that people can use in PR today, but you basically laid that out. And using social media, actually contacting people, visualizing where you want to be, who you want to be around, and visualizing the business itself. All
Definitely.
of
What
those.
you want to be, what that looks like, what kind of a world you want to live in. Visualize that every day.
Yeah.
I think all of us have dreams. So if you just visualize your dreams every day, and also the other thing I do is I'm always creating different um, dream boards. And I know it's a big practice now in spirituality in the mindfulness space. But the thing that's different about how I help people do it in my coaching is that I say, get all these images for your dream board and shuffle everything around and just think about making like a collage of your perfect world, what your perfect world looks like. Not having like anything really specific, but pictures of all the things you love or what make, like, sailing on a sailboat in the Mediterranean. You know, you can see what that looks like in a magazine, a picture of blue skies, blue water, a big white sail in a sailboat with the wind whipping through the sail. Get a picture of that. So get these things together on your dream board. Move it around until you feel it's where. That's it.
Mm.
See, not what you think it should look like, what you feel that feels the right thing for you, or the best thing, or the happiest thing, whatever that is that makes you really excited. That's how I help people do dream boards, if I do a retreat or whatever. Because I think it's a different approach if you're just doing the feeling thing than when you're doing the thinking thing. You know what I mean? Because you're
Yeah.
using different sides of your brain. That's the other part about this whole approach to mindfulness, that we have to use both sides of our brain, because we've got to get out of that ego brain, because the ego is the overthinking part, and then
Yeah.
you say, yeah, but what if I can't? What if, yeah, but I don't, but I can't, but I don't know that. So how do I do, that's the whole overthinking.
Yeah.
I mean, I've said it to myself, trust me, but I say, well, I've done all these other things, so what's the worst thing that can happen? And
Exactly.
people always say that. That's how you start with any plan. What's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah. And I mean, I'm one of those overthinkers too. Like, I don't care what it is. And I like what you said about the feeling, because as somebody who overthinks things,
Right.
when, if I can feel it, then it's a done deal. I'm
Right.
done.
Totally. That, because you're feeling. Can you
Hmm.
see me? Because I'm having a problem with my screen. Sorry.
No, I see you.
You do? Because I'm
Yeah.
having. The feeling is everything. Feeling is everything. I do everything by feeling.
Yep.
Everything. I waited to launch my book, which was done. It was completely done for maybe 6 months. And I just kept feeling, well, it's just not the right time. It's just not the right time. And then all of a sudden, boom, it was the right time in May.
Hmm.
And I just went full bore, and I did some book signings, and I did some traveling, and just, to get some visibility. And I had some promos done with a really, really cool kind of event photographer in Charleston. And that's another thing. That's the other thing that was really cool.
Hmm.
Because I didn't know that before I moved here.
Hmm. Are you open another tab? I'm sorry.
Well,
Do you
sorry.
open another window?
Yes. What should I do?
Okay. Close the window you just opened. That's okay, because I'll be clipping this. I'll clip this part out. But yeah, because then it's giving me three um, recordings, which I could probably, I'll delete. If you can't, I can delete it.
How do I delete it?
Let's see. Ask. It says ask Susan to close the other browser. That's what we're saying.
Okay,
So you're new with whichever one you just opened.
I'm doing it. I don't know
Okay.
why it's having trouble.
That's so funny.
So sorry. How are we doing now?
That's okay. That's okay. That's okay. I haven't moved into live yet. So,
Okay, cool. So
yeah.
what was I saying? So just for a really good example of PR, because I thought, I know, because I love Charles. I know I want to have my promo pictures with my new book. That's pink. My book is pink.
Mm.
Okay, that's my book, right?
Love
So
it. Love it.
this is all specifically for a reason, which I'll explain. And so
Mhm.
there's a car called the Pink Figgy. It's a Nissan Figaro. And there's a lady who does events and promotions and all kinds of things with this car. And it's very cute. I wish I had a picture to show you, but it's in my Instagram for sure.
Mhm.
It's on my website. It's everywhere. So I said, I want to have my book promo photographs with the Pink Figgy in a classic Charleston um, um, image. So that's what I
Mhm.
did. And I didn't know her before I moved here. I met her through Instagram because there's a group of people that all take pictures of Charleston. And so
Mm.
I just inculcated that group and got to know her through that. And then, so you see what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
2 years ago, I didn't know her. To have my book launch with the pink figgy. I mean, it's so great. It looks so good, so cool, very unique. And everyone says that, and I say, well, that's. I just thought that was cool, and I wanted to do that, so I did it. But that's another facet of PR now is that everything is visual. Everything's visual. You have to make sure that the visual aspect of what you're doing is going to appeal to the audience that you're trying to appeal to.
Mhm.
Everybody, and so everyone's listening. They're all listening to podcasts, and they all have their headphones and their earplugs in. So it's got to be visual, and it's got to be something that people can listen to, while they're driving or they're running or walking or whatever, or exercise. Because
Yeah.
when they work, I mean, typically, I guess people aren't listening to podcasts, but I don't know. What do I know?
Some might. Some might be. Some might be. I would be one of those. In one ear.
But you can't. Multitasking. That's against
Yes.
rules. So the thing
Yes.
is, and so this brings us to the mindfulness space, which is really, really
Mhm.
important. And it's important to our topic of purpose and focus. So for professionals and for all of us, no matter what you're doing, when people are driving, what's the worst thing that people do now? They're on their phone texting.
Yep.
A lot of people have their earplugs in and they're talking when they're driving. And I try not to do that just because I like to stay focused. I do
Mhm.
listen to the radio. But the other thing is being mindful means when you're focusing on one thing, focus on one thing. Don't
Yep.
be doing one thing over here and one thing over here. All the research shows that multitasking is terrible for your brain, and it's not efficient. Everybody, women, of course, mothers who have to do 10 million things at once. It's not as effective as focusing on one task at a time. The research shows that there's tons of research if you go look it up. So what I try to do with people is, especially in coaching, is to make people understand that when you're self-aware, so you know what triggers you, like if you're engaging with someone or several people, it's all of a sudden you feel nervous or anxious, or you feel like people are controlling the conversation and you're not able to get your point across.
Mm.
At that moment, being objective and being observant is the most important thing you can do, because you have to step back and you have to say, why do I feel this way? Just
Mhm.
take a breath and just wait. Because when your time is there, you'll see the moment if you're observing. But if you're in this mindset of, I don't want to be here right now, I could be doing all this other work, all the things that our monkey minds do when we're in meetings or we're on Zoom calls. Everybody's always doing something else. And that's not good for anything. It's just not.
No.
And you also feel like, people have this whole mindset, all people, and especially during the pandemic, it was so true. When everyone went to working from home, especially mothers, because they had to do everything and the kids were at home and they had to work, and they felt like that people felt like they had to be more productive because they were working from home. And productivity is not the end all be all. Doing something really well and doing one thing really well is really important for a feeling of, I've done this well. And you put everything into that one effort instead of spreading yourself too thin. Those all contribute to your purpose and focus. So being aware of all these things that pull you away from being in the moment. When you say, oh, I'm not paying attention, because I do that when I'm walking, because I walk every day on the beach. And that was part of my visualization when I lived in Atlanta. There's no beach in Atlanta.
There's none. There's no beach here. I do miss that coming from Florida. I do miss that.
Right? Oh, it was killing me. So the thing, I'll find myself, I do receive a lot of inspiration actually while I'm walking on the beach. And I'll say, so one of my tips to being mindful is I describe my surroundings to myself. Or because where I go, there's a lot of sea oats and there's a lot of grasses and stuff. So I'll just feel, the greenery as I'm walking by, or I'll stop, I'll look at a shell and I'll focus. And I do it all the time. And so because I find myself drifting, and I'm not really having any purpose other than to enjoy being present in the moment. And so, and not being on autopilot. And I know that we all find ourselves being on autopilot. Have you ever done that drive home from work or from the store and you don't remember at all?
Yep.
Like, how did I get here? Well, that's being on autopilot.
Yeah. Yeah. And
The first tip so there's 5 easy steps.
Yeah.
Just to be in the mindset of mindfulness. And that is describe your surroundings to yourself when you find that you're not, right there in the moment. That's the first one. And so the second one that I try to do with people, especially in coaching, especially with busy people, because busy people feel like they're on a schedule. They get up every day and they say, the first thing they think is, what do I have to do today? Not, what am I grateful for today? Or I'm so thankful for this comfortable bed I sleep in. I say that every day. Or their coffee, little simple things. It's the whole gratitude thing. So the whole thing that I try to do with people is to say, create space in your day. Every day for reflection and stillness. Even if it's just 5 minutes. I know people say, how do I do that? But I have to do this and I have to do this. Well, make the time because you're going to feel better when you do. Start with 5 minutes, whether it's in the morning or before you go to bed or whatever time works for you at your lunch, at lunch. I mean, it's better to start in the morning if you can and give yourself the space to do some breath work, take some deep breaths, clear your mind and just have some stillness, because going within takes a lot of commitment, and being aware takes commitment. So you have to start that practice, and that's an easy way to start. Just try to create space in your day, and you can do it more than one time a day, obviously, but creating space says to you, you're committed to yourself, you're committed to your self-care, you're committed to awareness. And just by the act of creating the space, you're starting to walk down the path of, I want to know what it is that's missing in my life. So that's the thing I work with people a lot on, is creating space in their day. It's really important. So the third thing is, during that stillness, try to start your meditation practice. because meditation helps us access the other part of our subconscious that our ego mind, always squashes, because our ego,
Overshadow. Yeah.
is the thinking mind and the thing that says, well, I have to do this, I have to do this. But the subconscious mind has all the answers you could ever need.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Mature Allure. For more information about us, visit matureallure.net and get social with us on Instagram and YouTube at mature.allure, Facebook at @4matureallure, and Twitter at mature_allure. Till next time, we encourage you to stay positive, embrace who you are at every stage of your life, and always tap into your mature allure.